You often find the people who work for non-profits are just so fiercely tenacious and passionate. I know that when I made that switch over to marketing, I was like, hell yeah, you guys can have fun with it. Now seeing brands who I look up to, it's showcasing the people that make the brand. Yeah. My dreams would be about work. You try so hard not to bring it into the office that inevitably it just does, and you just collapse. I felt like the worst human being on the planet because I just felt like I'd let everybody down, and looking back, I obviously can laugh about it now, but at the time it was horrible. It felt horrible to let people down. I think it wouldn't be right if it didn't go tits up at least once.
Hi Sarah, welcome to Wrecked. Thanks for coming to get wrecked with me.
Thank you for having me.
So, just to, I guess, explain who you are and what you do, tell us who you are and what your current job role is, please.
Yeah, so my name's Sarah Thomas-Gordon and I'm the marketing manager for Stoke-on-Trent City Centre Business Improvement District. It's an absolute mouthful, but I promise it's not that complicated getting down to the...
That's why I didn't say it.
Yeah, it's fine. I've stumbled across it so many times, and 2 years in, I'm just about getting a hang of it. So
it's like one of those tongue twisters, isn't it? Trying to say that when you're drunk.
Yeah, just bid it.
Yeah, just bid it. I like that. So you work in marketing then?
I do, yes. So I'm the marketing manager for the team. So we're essentially a team of 7 that looks after all things Stoke-on-Trent City Centre, Hanley. And we kind of do a mixture of everything. So I will market some of the events and activities and things that will help out the businesses in the city centre, as well as a wider team that go out and plant bulbs and make the place feel a bit nicer to be in for businesses and public as well.
No, I like that, and I think there's a lot of positive things going on around Stoke, which we will touch on a little bit later. But first of all, I'm going to take you all the way back. Have you always worked in marketing?
Not always. I've always wanted to. So I started my job working in my career working in scare mazes for Alton Towers. And that was, oh my goodness, 2011. So I worked that first scare fest in the towers, and it was a proper shock to the system. And I kind of stayed in that department for a long time. And then it wasn't really until I got to college and university when I thought, actually, marketing and filmmaking and writing and storytelling was the stuff that I was good at, I guess.
You did, was it media studies at Keele?
Yes, media studies with film at Keele University. So awesome university, great media suite, and lots of opportunities to get creative.
How did you get into that originally?
I think, I didn't quite know what I wanted from a career. Once upon a time, I wanted to be a clarinet teacher, but that ship has well sailed. Couldn't be more different. But I think it was when I went to the open day for Newcastle under Lyme College, and they were talking about media studies, and I thought, I didn't even realise this was something I could study. It wasn't something that was in my peripheral at school. And they were talking about... like rivers and all that stuff. No. So her talking about sort of music videos and media and advertising, and actually the theoretical side of that really excited me, which sad potentially, but it really stuck. So getting into it at college and then later at university, I slowly realised that sort of media production and social media marketing was starting to get a little bit more serious at that time. So I think much of the career from there was right place, right time, and also just a lot of exploring of what I like to do.
Yeah, that's a really good way of looking at it, actually. I remember when I kind of came out of university and I was like, oh, what do I want to do? I literally wrote a list of every job that I'd had and put like what I liked and what I didn't like on it. And it was like no more methodical than that. It was like, what do I enjoy?
That's decent though. I think, it's not, the phrase isn't there about like, oh, you're not working if you're enjoying what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I think I've been quite lucky in that regard, where I've worked at a lot of cool places and worked on some really exciting projects. But of course, that comes with a lot of hard work and collaboration and teamwork and pushing yourself out of your comfort zone of this is what I like to do. Sometimes you're going to have to do an awful lot more than that to make it successful, and demand of the business is always changing. So a really good starting point, I think, for my career. getting lucky sort of in the right pockets of spaces locally to the area.
Definitely, and you've worked with some incredible companies locally as well, especially in like the visitor and tourism attraction industries. So we know each other from Alton Towers.
We do.
We both worked on their was it product excellence when you were there?
I think at the time it was called product excellence, and it was guest excellence, and I don't
resort excellence.
Yeah, I don't know what the department's called nowadays, but it was in that kind of
sales, social media, customer services, helping people plan weddings. Birthdays.
Oh my gosh.
Basically, we were the department that were just like the doers of everything, weren't we?
Pretty much. And that has carried on for the last 10 years in every other job that I've had. But yeah, it was a good sort of introduction to social media, because I know it was kind of that customer facing side of things, but it really got to teach me in particular, I don't know if you feel the same, about brand and communicating in like brand language, and sort of getting information out there that isn't just, hi, here's this thing, you'll like this thing, buy this thing, here's the link. You know what I mean? Like, and Alton's it had fantastic branding, and you know that feeling of escapism, that you could kind of be a bit more cheeky with your replies.
You could have fun. Yeah, you could have fun with it.
Yeah, for sure. And it kind of blew up really when I eventually moved into the marketing department. So I was seeing all sides of how social was important for, you know, speaking to customers and getting products out there and selling tickets fundamentally, but not so much in a salesy way.
It was more of an extension of that experience that you would have when you were actually there. It was almost like tantalising them with the experience so that it would make them want to go.
Exactly, yeah. Customer experience, it started on that first interaction of, hey, how much are tickets? Or, oh, hey, I'm looking forward to this ride. And really that reply could either just be, hey, here's a date. Or it could be, you know, something mammoth and magical and a lot of fun. I think there was potentially a little bit of fear to not go too far into the fun replies, and, you know, a lot of very distinct lines of, okay, well, the marketing team do this and you guys can only do that. And I know that when I made that switch over to marketing, I was like, hell yeah, you guys can have fun with it, because A, it makes my job easier, but B, it feels disjointed when you look at the replies on X now, and there's no sort of parity with how you're speaking to customers. So having that moment of giving people the freedom to have a lot more fun with their replies, it was great, and it definitely worked for engagement.
I think as well, from a customer service perspective, it really worked because every other company, well, most other companies that you kind of interact with on a customer service level, they were canned responses. And you see it even now more so than ever in like the AI generation, where it's like everything's a chatbot, everything's chat GPT, like everything's got Americanized spellings.
Oh, it's disgusting, isn't it? Colour. Ooh, wow. Yeah, but it is nice, and you're dead right. You can absolutely tell when they've perhaps not got a team there of people doing that. I mean, I'm not sure what their department's like now, but even through like telephone calls and things like that, and your website, you know, the entire customer journey's got to be considered, and social is fun, like it really is. And when I first started delving into that side and the content world and things like TikTok, when that blew up during the pandemic especially, you know, it was a real calling card, if you like, of, oh my God, I'm having so much fun with this. I'm being on brand, so no one can tell me off. And also, it just works with the brand. Like, TikTok was a lot of fun when that came about during the pandemic. So in essence, like a lot of tourism attractions and other businesses, a lot of teams were put on furlough. Yeah. Thank goodness for furlough. And as soon as I locked down the for Alton before going off, and then a few months later, it was like, hey, great call on securing the handle. Now you need to go and create content that isn't just dancing and like whatever the TikTok.
The early days of TikTok.
Yeah, vintage days. And it essentially just, I took the phone out with me and I was like, right, I'm just going to go for a walk and just see what pops into my head, because I could pre-plan everything. And I always find that the content that I don't prepare a lot for gets the most engagement by a country mile. And I think any marketer would tell you that. And it's kind of annoying, but also you've just got to trust the system. So I'll go out walking, and I kind of like, there was like, oh, is it Spinning Monkey? It's like a bit of audio that was like really silly and slapstick. And I just filmed some footage of one of the roller coasters. And I think the first video that I did properly for it was POV, you're on Spinball Whizzer, and kind of had that AI generated voiceover of like, I don't know, just snarky comments that you'd imagine while you're on one of the rides. So, and it blew up. It got like 500,000 views. And I was thinking, oh my God, this is crazy. Like, and I'm like, more of that. And then, that was basically what I did for the rest of my time there. And it was really cool.
No, I like that. I think as well, especially with you being media, you probably were the best situated to actually do all of the TikTok content.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, I left when I did after about 3 and a bit years there. And I hoped that the TikTok had sort of get taken over and, you know, stay in-house. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. It was taken to, you know, an agency that didn't really know the brand. By looking at it, wasn't spying on them, but it just felt very detached. And I think now seeing brands who I look up to on who do TikTok and who do social in general, it's showcasing the people that make the brand, and that totally disappeared. I think they've got back to it now, which is amazing to see. But it's interesting to see how, as a platform, it's developed and what works. And actually, you can't sell product on there directly, can you?
Not really, no. And I think as well, like if we're going to go into TikTok for a bit, like every sort of, I'd say every maybe fourth or fifth post is somebody trying to sell you something now on TikTok. Like it has got a very kind of like QVC. Here's a link to TikTok shop, but it's always the people like that seem to actually do well, where they're kind of like trying to influence you. It's never the ones of like the product shots like purely on their own, because I just scroll past them, you know it is. Whereas like the ones where it's like they're still talking at the camera, it does feel a bit more natural and organic. And it's really interesting, I think, with TikTok how it has evolved. And because probably not now at this point, but a few years ago when it had just started, you could just do one video like off the hoof and it would get like a lot of traction because people weren't really producing content for it. I think going back to, we'll take it to LinkedIn. LinkedIn, only 1% to 2% of people actually create content for LinkedIn. That was before obviously they integrated like ChatGPT and AI comments and stuff like that. Now a lot more people do, but it's not great content. And the amount of conversations that you have with people where it's like they don't enjoy the platform anymore because of all of like the artificial intelligence and ChatGPT that is now so ingrained into LinkedIn as a system, it's almost diminished it, and I really hope we don't see that across TikTok.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I mean, it's easy to tell, like you say, which ones are AI and which ones, even when it comes down to the copy of a post, I can scroll down and be like, that's AI. That's been AI generated. There's no way. And I think it definitely has its uses. Like I can use it for, just to help spark an idea or a bit of copy, and then obviously make it your own and make it factually correct and all the rest of it, because you're like, what is going on there?
I don't think factually correct matters on Meta anymore, does it?
Oh, controversial. No, I mean
from a brand perspective, but Meta don't care.
No. And really, I'm nowadays, and especially at BID, when so my marketing team is myself and my marketing assistant, right? At Alton, it was a massive team when I was there, huge, like 15 odd people. I worked at Trentham Estate, that was a team of 3, so I've seemed to have gotten less and less, but actually developing a lot more experience of, okay, well, my skills lie here are the things that we may be able to outsource, here are the things that, you know, AI can help with, because it's unrealistic to you know, two people. I mean, my marketing assistant's fabulous, she's a graduate, you know, fresh out of university, and she's sort of learned the ropes as we've gone forth in the last year, and she's brilliant, love her, she's fantastic, Charlotte, but I would never feel inclined to put that pressure on her to just expect her to know everything. And I think sometimes when you're in larger corporate settings, there's a hell of a lot more red tape, and actually you're expected to do way more than your job description. And you, especially at the time when you know, you're the youngest, you're the baby of the team, and you're kind of expected to come up with these massive national campaigns, or, you know, oh, well, this team doesn't have any ideas, so you sit in a room and you come up with an idea for a summer campaign. What? Like, absolutely what? And so there's some learnings that you can take away with, okay, you might not have as much people at your disposal, but the quality of people and the candor of those people is super important. And again, for TikTok, we're having to be presenters now as well as social media marketers. Like, you know, I've never been to acting school, I've never taken a drama class, but you just kind of have to turn on the actor side of you to, like, you know, I was filmed in fish slippers in my office the other day because all for the content.
Yeah, that's probably a new level of doing it for the gram. But I guess I get where you're coming from, because I think, for me, one of the reasons that I started this is I genuinely really believe that video, especially if you are a service-based company, you're selling your own knowledge and your own skill set. How could I sit in front of a client and tell them that video is going to be great for their marketing strategy if I'm not investing in it myself?
Precisely.
Like, you've got to lead from the front, I think, in those. Like, do as I say and do, not just do as I say. Because I'm the type of person that if someone told me to do something and they weren't doing it themselves, I'd just be like, oh, I'm not listening to you. So that was like one of the reasons that I wanted to do this, but it's really uncomfortable. I hate looking at myself on video, being completely honest.
I know what you mean. Like, I've done many a media interview or like a radio interview, and I refuse to listen to it. I'll make someone else get the clipping. I'll be like, right, you just deal with that. But, you know, it comes with experience and it comes with time. You know, I don't think every single person in your business has to be media trained. If you've got the money and the means, fantastic, but you can create some perfectly great video content with your phone. You can get clip-on mics nowadays and perhaps a ring light, but I think quality, yes, whilst important, it all comes down to that authenticity of the content you're trying to make.
And I think as well, I've seen it with a few people that have been media trained. They're almost media trained to the point where everything they do looks like they look like reading off a script.
Almost like AI.
Yes, and they lose the authenticity. And it's like, before I worked in marketing, I worked in sales, and I worked in this, like, it was in recruitment, but it felt like we were in a call centre environment. And there were 5 of us that started that job at the same time. And like, almost like at Alton Towers, where we were almost encouraged to put some of our personality into, like, our replies and the responses. That was super, like, corporate. Like, you could have answered the phone to all 5 of us and we probably would have said the exact same things. And it just didn't feel like me. It felt horrible. It felt like I was going into work every single day, and, like, they were 2 very separate people. And I remember actually Matt Fawley. Yeah, he was my first ever, like, proper boss, and he said to me once, he was like, you know what, you're incredible. If you give you something to do and you let you just, like, kind of crack on with it and put your personality into it, it's great. And I think it's because, like, when you can bring your personality into things and have fun with it, you can do that. And that's something that we love doing with our clients, like, helping them show that. And I suppose with you and the bid, you want that to be the case for Stoke-on-Trent. You want to champion Stoke and get, like, the personality of Stoke into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so much to unpack from that. You know, as a city, this year it's huge because we're celebrating 100 years of city status in June, but there's things going on throughout the entire year, and really you can have so much fun with that. And perhaps, you know, there'll always be sort of media and articles and people really that consistently look back to, oh, how things were. But actually so much has happened since then, you know, socially, economically, politically, whatever way, you know, you swing that way. But you've got to look forward with some optimism because there are some fantastic people. And coming back to lovely Matt Thorley, actually, having someone that can empower you to have fun with it is so important. And, you know, I'm hoping that however my career grows or develops, or who I manage or who I speak to, you know, being a decent human being has got to come first with any of your content. You know, I've had really horrible situations, like in my personal life years ago, when I didn't have that support there and the expectation to, you know, I gave everything. I gave absolutely everything, and it was job roles that were made my entire personality. And when you have times of hardship, when you go, hey, I'm gonna need to back up a little bit, and that isn't, you know, that level of respect isn't reciprocated, you've got to think, actually, is this the right fit for me?
Yeah, I think as well, like as a creative, I was having this conversation the other day actually with a couple of other marketers. People who are creative tend to put so much of themselves into their work because it is them, it is their idea. It's not just like, I guess, something that's quite cut and dry or following a process. A lot of the time, the creators, the innovators, are the ones coming up with the ideas, are trying to sell them into things. So it's natural that they are there, I guess, taking things a little bit more personally. So I think emotions in creative environments can run very, very high if they're not managed appropriately.
Precisely.
And we have it with agencies as well, where like obviously we're paid by a client to, I guess, execute things, but at the same time we're also there to protect their brand as well, and trying to balance that in a way that ultimately gets them the results but also is on brand and also like will push them in a new direction is really difficult. I've never really worked in an in-house marketing team, so I don't know how that works, but I imagine if you've got 15 conflicting personalities in one space and you're all creative, it can be intense. Very intense.
Yeah. And I think everyone shares the passion and the end goal, but perhaps people's routes of getting there, you know, they may be more into sort of traditional marketing, and you get some generations that don't necessarily get social media, which is still the case now. Although I think, you know, at BID, my CEO is very much just like, crack on, which is fantastic in a way, because it gives you that sense of, okay, this is my thing, this is what I own, and how can I get the most out of everyone. But, you know, when the team is so small like it is now, yes, we perhaps have to do a bit more legwork with things, but it definitely feels a lot more joined up. And, you know, I've had people say to me in the past, like, how would you manage to do so much and sort of put out content consistently? And I think giving a damn is got to be at the top of the list, really, and having that support network around you.
I think support in this environment is just so important, because I think I'm in the lucky position, I suppose, where like I talk to a lot of marketers, and a lot of them are all, the biggest conversation I think at the moment people are having is they're asked to do more and more and more with less and less and less resource. And also as well, there's new channels coming out all the time. It's okay, what's a realistic approach here? Because my CEO wants to be on every platform ever. Like, we don't have the resource for that. We're not putting out as high quality content as we'd like because we're stretched, or like it's all being put through AI tools to make it go further. And there seems to be just a mismatch in terms of like expectation and like the reality of what resource can actually deliver, and also the budget that people are willing to put behind it as well. So those are the conversations that seem to be prevalent at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And absolutely not alone for anyone who is in marketing, no matter what stage of the career, where they're thinking, oh my God, there's so much more to consider, like you say, with channels and lack of resource and funds and stuff. But you've got to know what works for you and what you personally can manage, because if there's anything that I've learned sort of being in various different environments, from, you know, corporate or small or non-profit, whatever it might be, if you're burnt out, you're not going to produce the work, like, end of. You know, burnout is such a real thing, and it's something that I don't wish to experience again. You know, in I almost think that it shouldn't take that levels of burnout or hardship or whatever's going on for you to think, actually, what am I doing here? You know, how am I ever going to manage taking work home, you know, to whatever level you're comfortable with? But setting yourself boundaries and taking care of your health is just so important.
What were some of the signs of burnout for you?
The feeling of it was my role and nothing else. You know, I'm quite a perfectionist, I would say, with content, and I would almost see, you know, slight quality dips in my own work, where I'd be super self-critical, and my dreams would be about work, you know.
Yeah.
So during times where perhaps things haven't been so easy outside of that office space, you try so hard not to bring it into the office that inevitably it just does, and you know, you just collapse. I mean, I'm in a situation now where I feel so comfortable with, yes, things are really really busy and exciting, but with that strength of my team have got my back, I've got my own back, and I trust myself to make the right decision at the end of the day. So that recognizing that burnout early on is super duper important. It might look different to somebody else, but normally the signs are there. And, you know, never be afraid to speak to a line manager if you feel comfortable. You know, I know there's some beliefs out there that say, oh, well, you know, your colleagues are your colleagues and not your friends. Yes, I do agree with that, but there is no shame whatsoever in admitting that you need any kind of help.
I think it's important to, I guess, have these conversations, because let's face it, like, a lot of young people want to come into this industry, and it might be their first, their second, even their third job, and there are certain pressures that are kind of in a marketing role that you might not get in others, like deadlines, time pressures, kind of like quality control, that wearing many hats. Because again, we're talking about teams that are often under-resourced, and they might not know what burnout is. They might not know that that's what they're experiencing. And I've worked with incredible people that have worked as designers, marketers, and they've left the industry because they thought that they didn't like the jobs, and it was like, actually, they just didn't like the environment that they were in. And like, one of them's coming back to work with us now, our designer. She really struggled with burnout at a previous agency she worked at, and now she's working with us. She's like, I love it here because, like, you just let me get on with it. I'm like, as I should. As I should.
Absolutely.
I am not a designer, and I am happy to admit that.
Yes.
You tell me what to do with my brand.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh my goodness. And I think it comes down to culture. You know, culture can mean, you know, it's not about an office pizza party on a Friday afternoon. No. You know what I mean? Like, culture is about, we talked earlier about the customer journey, right?
Yeah.
I almost see it as your own journey.
One,
yeah. And sort of that greeting, or, you know, how your team are. And especially in a small team, I feel it's so important to look out for each other, and sort of the more that you get to know people and their personality types, how they deal with feedback is really important. How they deal with information being relayed to them. Like, everybody is unique, and I think part of the problem that perhaps younger people may face in this stage of the career is that, you know, a manager gives them a piece of feedback, it might be perceived as a little bit more constructive. They see it as, oh my goodness, I'm the worst human being ever. Yeah. I'd never want to come back in. I'm gonna go and cry. And like, I've been there. Yeah, oh my goodness, same. I think every marketer's been there. You know, for not ordering. What was it? I didn't order some edible mealworms for a press event once. Oh. And I felt like the worst human being on the planet, because I just felt like I'd let everybody down. Yeah. And looking back, I obviously can laugh about it now, but at the time it was horrible. It felt horrible to let people down, you know, and it doesn't matter. Like, absolutely doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things.
I used to have a boss, actually, that would, if I'd write a social post, and this was before, like, it was explained to me that a brand is a singular entity. So, like, I think you're used to talking about brands as, like, a plural, aren't you? Like, we, da-da-da, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I didn't realise the formal thing for a brand is, like, big reputation is, not big reputation are.
Yeah.
And she'd go back in and just change any social posts that I'd published, but she wouldn't like tell me why. And then I got to a point where like I literally like would have palpitations every time I was sending an email, like every time like I was putting any social posts out. God forbid I had to send anything to print. Honestly, I would have been a nervous wreck.
Yeah.
I think my resting heart rate on those days would sit around like 113 because it was like on the verge of like I could not have caffeine that day. And it's but I'm really glad that that was the case, because now like I can spot so quickly in people that I've managed if they're having a bad day. And I think it makes you so mindful as someone who has like the privilege and the responsibility of managing people, that you are actually there to look after their welfare as well. And I would be mortified if like any of my team ever said to me like I'm sat here shaking like a shitting dog because like I'm scared of you reading my email. Like I'm kind of on the edge of like I'd never want anyone to feel like that.
I feel exactly the same, because I have been that dog in so many occasions, and you just think like, yeah, we laugh about it now when we look back, but it's so serious. And especially when, you know, in the case of the girl I manage now, and she is so like, I want to protect her at all costs because she's so talented, and I don't think she realises at this moment quite how good she is. So that level of coaching and support, but also not wanting to handhold 100% of the time.
You gotta let people experience a few knocks, but like not have the enjoyment of the role and like the confidence knocked out of them.
And she's absolutely fab, and 12 months in, and you know, she'll just crack on with things, and she's super autonomous and she's creative, and we've, you know, just had a video on BID, so a lot of what we do is promote sort of unsung heroes or hidden gems of the city centre, and we've just promoted the Stoke Film Club based at the Potteries Museum, and like it's got like 20,000 views, and she can't quite believe that it has. And I'm like, it's a great piece of content. You know, it works. Believe in yourself, crack on, you're totally capable, and it wasn't just a fluke. So yeah, it does feel brilliant having been through all stages of that management cycle, and being, you know, fresh graduate, first ever marketing job, to now hopefully empowering other people to have that power themselves.
I'm going to go back to Matt Fawley, because he was like my first ever boss. He spoiled me. Honestly.
Nothing was ever the same since.
No, I think it set the bar so high for any other manager. So I was almost like, well, Matt Fawley would have let me do it.
What would Matt Fawley do?
So now I just try and embody that. And Kate McBurney as well. She was another incredible manager that I've had.
Yeah, shout out to her. Proper mum. And, you know, like I've had some fabulous managers. You know, when I was at Trentham Estate, I had it was sort of the tail end of certain, you know, like family illnesses and what have you. And she was just so supportive. And I remember having one moment where I was like, I can't do this, and sort of having those same feelings. And she just said, hey, it's fine. You don't have to be giving 100% of the time. If you only have 30% to give, you're still giving 100% of that 30%. And like, you know, you don't have to come in bright-eyed, bushy-tailed and do 50,000 pieces of content that day and then make everyone a cup of tea and then go, because there have been times where I'd felt that was the expectation. And like Lorraine Trentham, I know she's not there anymore, but she was massively game-changing for me as just a figure of a nice human being. Being, you know, a fantastic people leader. Being a manager and being a people leader are two completely different things. And I will say that till the day I die.
Yeah, I agree. So
Matt Thorley and Lorraine, we love you.
I've never met you, Lorraine, but I really want to.
Matt, obviously, you know, hope you're well.
Yeah, best wishes, Sarah. But yeah, I think I really do agree on the whole leadership / management side of things. I did want to touch this. So I've never worked not-for-profit. I've worked very, very corporate roles, and then I've worked kind of like your small business agency type roles, and obviously that's what we are now. We're a boutique agency. What would you say the difference is between corporate and not-for-profit?
You know, they're not too dissimilar in a way, especially, so how bids work, we're funded by the businesses that we serve in a way, and every few years we're voted back in by those businesses. So there's differences in the way that the budget is pretty much set for 5 years.
Yeah.
And you can kind of plan quite far in advance, and it's not necessarily reliant on sales and meeting budget and, you know, all of that corporate lingo and stuff that I'm still... No, I'm so far away from that now that it's fabulous. But in terms of, obviously there's a lot of stakeholder engagement with both, but for not for profit, there are so many people that we deal with. You know, we work with our local council, we work with, you know, like 400 businesses that are actually in the city centre, dealing with agencies and dealing with, you know, people who deal with potholes and who who empty the bins, and you know there's so many, as well as local educators and influencers, and you know it's a minefield, and it's calculating for me in terms of marketing how I can get those people into certain pockets of work that we're doing and how we can create meaningful relationships. I think with corporate, and especially working in leisure and tourism, for example, it was fiercely competitive, you know, always being, you know, comparing yourself to, oh, well, they've done this bit of content, so you've got to do it. For me and non-profits, and especially bids, it's a brilliant community. You know, I speak to other bids most weeks, you know, having calls with Chelmsford and about various different things and best practice, and it's brilliant.
I guess it's like collaboration, not competition.
Exactly.
Let's face it, like, you're here to generate more business for the businesses within Stoke and like help them out. Obviously, the kind of people that you're wanting to do is like really empower the people within the area. Exactly. Yes, you'll attract other people outside of it, but I doubt people from Chelmsford are going to come to Stoke for the day.
They
might do, but like chances are they're going to spend more time in Chelmsford, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. And I think especially drawing on those different stakeholders, and like for example, we've got a massive project for the centenary, which I can talk about, which is great. And it's celebrating 100 faces over the past 100 years. So we're working with a local artist who we've had dealings with in the past, Rob Fenton, and he's producing the mural. But we're going to be speaking to a lot of different sectors across the city. So education, sport, music, culture, faith, all of these different subsections of society. And I think, oh gosh, in what other corporate environment would I have that opportunity to speak to and film and hear stories off these amazing people? So that is going to be a huge example of just communicating with people and getting a really, really fascinating story out there.
I like that. I think it summed up really well, because I think like especially with us and a lot of the work we do, and especially corporates as well, it is very much like sales, revenue generation, EBITDA, all of that great thing. Yeah, and I think as well, like bringing it back to that, in marketing as well, like I am firmly of the belief that obviously marketing should be generating like revenue in terms of that for businesses, because sales are the lifeblood of it. But if you don't necessarily want those pressures, there are other marketing roles available for people.
Yeah, precisely. And, you know, I know the bid industry, there's plenty of bids across the UK, and not-for-profits and charities, etc. I know there's quite a lot based locally, which is brilliant. But you often find the people who work for non-profits are just so fiercely tenacious and passionate and sociable people, you know, and absolutely about sales. And a bit of an arm of what we're doing and what we're funding as a bid is a gift card for the city centre. You know, it's got almost 50 businesses on there and counting.
Awesome.
And it sort of incorporates, you know, the big brands that you'd expect to be on a gift card, but also like amazing independents down on Piccadilly. And it's just a really cool way of supporting local and driving sales and giving those businesses that feeling of, you know what, I know you're doing an awful lot of marketing and sales yourself, but we've got you back as well with this physical card that you can buy at Stoke-on-Trent giftcard.com.
What was that? Stoke-on-Trent giftcard.com?
Stoke-on-Trent giftcard.com.
We'll put a link in.
Thank you. I don't know why I'm doing this. But yeah, so there's so many different ways of attacking it, and you're dead right. If anyone is watching or listening and thinking, oh God, like the thought of having to do sales reports and work it, you know, the corporate world scares me, and it's not for them. There is absolutely so many different sectors to work in, and actually some of, especially in tourism, they are an awful lot of fun, but you've got to work hard.
Yeah, I think that is just a thing in marketing. Like, I get it a lot. I'm mentoring a couple of people from Leeds University. I went to Leeds, hence why I have that relationship. And a few of them are starting to ask me around marketing careers and stuff. And it's like, I don't want you to think it's just like what you see on TikTok, where it's like, come spend the day with me. So it's like that. The entire reason I started this podcast was because I wanted to show people the real, like, things that we actually get up to in marketing. It is an incredibly rewarding career, but by God, you have to work so hard to be good at it.
You do, and I really hate the word because it's synonymous with a few, like maybe a toxic way of thinking. But the word resilience, I think, can actually be so important because you've got your own resilience of what you can put your mind to and what hours you're willing to work and the kind of work that you're looking to produce. It's not just about, oh, well, you're busy, deal with it. Find a way to make it work. It's about having those tools to give yourself and support yourself to complete your best work and to put yourself even out there to get a role in marketing in the first place, because that's scary, especially when you've got a CV that perhaps doesn't have any marketing experience on, and you think, oh my God, where the hell do I start? And you've got to put yourself in tricky situations.
The thing is, though, like when I was hiring last year for the role that I did now, I literally put out there, like, I don't care what experience you have, like literally, like where I was. Honestly, I probably had 3 CVs that were actually like incredible and creative. The rest of them were your boring, bog standard Word document. I probably didn't read any of them, if I'm being honest. Coming from someone who worked in recruitment, I was like, I can't be bothered. I'm literally giving an opportunity here for someone who's never worked in marketing if they didn't want to. In the end, I chose Morgan, who's a marketing exec. She worked in marketing for 3 years, but she was the best person for the role. She was the only person who mentioned sales and ROI to me in the interview. And I was like, by God, like if this is the standard of people applying for the work that we're doing here, like there's something going wrong in the industry.
Yeah, for sure. And I think back of like my first ever marketing role was at Keele University. So they were doing like student ambassador roles for all sorts of things, but then they had 4, I think, that were for marketing and social media, and I was lucky enough to get one of those roles with very little experience, maybe taking the odd photo when I was in guest excellence for Alton and just messaging marketing and being like, hey, so I know there's this weekend specific product for Halloween. I'm happy to take some photos for you because I am in this day, blah, blah, blah. And having that on my portfolio.
Yeah.
The work at Keele, it was absolutely fabulous, and sort of exposing myself to filming vox pops, which in itself is very uncomfortable if you're not a sociable human being. People just wanting to have a cup of tea and watch the orchestra on, like it's quite daunting as a student. But having that sort of first experience, it doesn't have to be in a marketing environment. It can just be as simple as, I'm passionate about these things, I'm going to write a blog, or I'm going to start a TikTok account, which really wasn't an option. And that in itself is a portfolio of, hey, here's the content I can produce, here's my niche, here's how I can present. So I think, you're dead right. It's really hard to get some decent and passionate candidates,
especially as well. I think like when you're creating content for brands that aren't necessarily your area of interest, you need to be very talented to actually put energy and passion into that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think for, I talk about Charlotte, who works with me at the BID, and she had, experience working in some hospitality venues, but her CV stuck out because she volunteered for certain projects, or dealing with a website refresh or content upload for the company that she was at the time. In her just can-do attitude, and I know sometimes you can't be bothered in I've got to do this massive application process and I've got to make my CV look like this, but it's once you've got your foot in the door and once you've got that first role to figure out what you want to do, the world's kind of your oyster. And I would almost argue there are plenty of opportunities locally, not just in Stoke, but Staffordshire. I'll say I got relatively lucky with my first ever experiences, but I will still give myself the credit that I put in that volunteer work and I pushed myself out of, I was just a little introverted film and media student. Like, I was always behind the camera, never in front of it. And like, I'm on a literal video recorded podcast now. No chance would I have expected to do that at the infancy of my career.
Yeah.
So you've just got to think, I'm going to make myself uncomfortable for a minute so I can be comfortable later on.
Yeah, 100%. And as well, and I suppose it goes back to if you surround yourself with a team that actually has your back, they'll be there to help you if it does go tits up.
I think it wouldn't be right if it didn't go tits up at least once. Yeah. Like when you get back from a shoot and nothing's recorded or the memory card's corrupted. It just happens, and or back to the mealworm situation. Bad things do happen, but essentially marketing, we're not saving lives.
Yeah, we are
literally not saving. We are on a floating rock, and we are not saving lives. So we need to have fun and just do what we can.
But no, I like that. So a couple of last minute questions then to kind of wrap this up. For anyone who's looking to get into marketing, what advice would you give them?
I'd definitely say do some research. So nowadays there's so many more roles to get into than back in the day. I say back in the day. But really sort of going, okay, here's what I'm good at. How can I turn that into a career? And 99% of the time, there'll probably be a role.
Yeah.
For me, I stayed locally throughout my entire education, and was told I would actively have to move away from Stoke if I wanted any sort of career in the media industry, which is bonkers. Yeah. But if you are wanting to take those first steps, I would definitely get a portfolio. Whether that be in social media or copywriting. If you're at a company now who maybe doesn't have, doing part-time work at a coffee shop, say, hey, how about I set up a TikTok account? How about we have an Instagram account? I'm happy to run it as part of the role and raise a bit of awareness, and boom, there's something fantastic for your portfolio. You don't have to have a degree finished and all polished up to work in marketing anymore.
Also, as well, like I have an English degree, like literally no sort of marketing. I kind of fell into it because I didn't want to work in sales anymore. Like I'd kind of be reluctant to hire a marketing graduate purely because the stuff they learn about in university is like, this is how Gymshark have done things, this is how ASOS have done things. Most businesses do not have that budget.
No, absolutely not. And innocent smoothies is one that I hear about. So in my set of interviews for the marketing assistant role, I had the question of, okay, what brand do you most enjoy on social media and why? And 6 out of the 7 interviewers said innocent smoothies. And I'm not even joking.
But why? I don't even, like, their social doesn't even get me. If someone had been like Odd Muse or something, or like the founder of Odd Muse, I'd have been like, yes, you're hired.
Yeah, right.
On the spot, cancel the rest of them.
So for me, I can't remember what brand it was in particular, but it was more about the way the candidate I selected was talking about the brand and sort of explaining, oh, they use this sort of content, they work with influencers for this sector, they use a lot of UGC, and they've got, a really good environmental package. Like that for me, it didn't matter what brand they chose, as long as it wasn't, oh, I like it because it made me laugh, haha. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, well, they've regurgitated, like, I don't know, digital marketing strategy 2025, et al., whatever it is. Like, what's some textbook? And they've said that that's like a really great example. But the thing is, as well, like, I also think these textbooks have taken years to write. So the examples that they're using are so outdated now compared to what is actually going on in the real world.
It'd be really interesting to see the kind of like textbooks and educational documents that come out as a result of TikTok, and I'm sure they're already being written and published. I'll have to go to a library perhaps, but or online. But it is really exciting. It's a really exciting industry for people who are either graduating or wanting a complete switch up in their career to get involved with, because there is just so much to do now.
Yeah, there's so many different roles, and I think in terms of actually working in marketing, like I say, it's very rewarding, but very hard work.
Sure is.
So, in terms then of the bid, how do you support companies, and if they want to reach out to you and get involved in anything that you're doing, what's the best way?
Yeah, so especially when it comes to the mural that we're producing at the end of the year to celebrate 100 years, we'll be inviting public to make their own votes. So that will be on our website, Stoke-on-Trent City Centre.co.uk. We're also open to working with, corporate businesses who want to get involved with the launch event of that. There's loads of different packages available for sponsorship. So they're more than welcome to have a brew with me. They can email me at, are you going to put something on a screen or in a bio? Or
we'll put it in the bio so that any links, people can actually click on the link.
Yeah.
Because no one pauses and writes it down, do they?
They can drop me an email. It'll be down there, I'm sure.
Okay.
And just whatever way we want to help. We predominantly support businesses within our city centre area, but if you're a supplier or a vendor or an entertainment provider who just wants to say hi, please do.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me. It's been fab.
Great. Cheers, Sarah.
Thank you.